Alcohol and Anime Night. Tonight we're going to do something a little different. We're actually filming in my backyard. So if you happen to see any weird giant spiders or rattlesnakes or anything coming up behind me, it'll be too late because I'll be dead. But we are here to be the show that gets you drunker, gets you fatter, and in this case, introduces you to the great outdoors. So I just thought we'd do something a little bit different tonight. It was a beautiful night, and I thought we'd get outside instead. Tonight we're going to check out a couple of really cool things. We're going to do an on-the-spot review of this Four Peaks Peach Golden Ale. In fact, I'm going to crack it right now. Bam. Interesting. All right. Well, we'll keep you updated on that. Four Peaks Peach. We'll take a couple of sips of that through the night here. But the review tonight is a really fun one. Tonight we are talking about Black Lagoon. And we're not talking about the creature from the Black Lagoon. We are talking the anime series from the spring of 2006 from Madhouse. Now, you might be familiar with the character Revy. You've probably seen her. She's a very popular anime character. She wears a black tank top, has the shoulder harness, and a whole bunch of tattoos on her arms. So, you've probably seen her before. She's also known for her super short Daisy Duke shorts and combat boots. Don't let any of that surprise you, though, and don't let any of that fool you. This is not an anime that is the sexy kind of anime at all, other than some of those titillating things from here and there. This is a hardcore action, violence, and it's a lot of fun. If you're a fan of American movies and action movies from the 80s, you're going to love this. Much like Gunsmith Cats, this series is very heavily influenced by Arnold Schwarzenegger films, your 1980s shoot-'em-up military films. It's got all of that, and it's got it in spades. So let's talk about the plot. The plot takes place in Thailand, a city called Rangpur. And think of Rangpur as like the Mos Eisley of the world. Kind of no greater hive of scum and villainy, as Obi-Wan Kenobi would say. And this is kind of a melting pot for every different type of gang, ethnic group, drug runners, weapons runners, mercenaries, assassins, anybody is here. And if they're doing something awful and there's money to be made on it, they're here. And that's where our protagonist comes in. The story revolves around two characters. One is a character, a Japanese business named Rokuro Okajama, which is, they just call him Rock. Roku sounds like rock, so they just call him Rock. He's a Japanese businessman, typical kind of, the shirt and tie type thing. How he gets involved with this group is really episode 1. He essentially is almost like kidnapped by them. So I don't want to give too much else away, but he's a main character. He comes back, so it's episode 1. So how big of a spoiler can it be? But I recommend it. And the other character is a character called Revy. Now Revy is a very complicated and interesting character. Revy is a Chinese American who's here in Thailand, and she is a part of a band of mercenaries / pirates. That there's a whole group of them that are on this old PT boat, and kind of a surplus boat. It's like an old missile boat, I think. And they go around do different tough jobs for different clients. Many of these jobs involve getting rid of people or making sure they can get certain stuff over. Again, you'll get to it later. Revy is she's a killer, and she's great at what she does. She's known for being completely ambidextrous. She uses 2 modified Berettas, and they're engraved with the Jolly Roger, and so you might have seen that out there. It's a pretty popular kind of meme. So she is a stone cold killer, and this story that goes over all the episodes, and there's several super interesting arcs. A little bit more is revealed about her past, and in fact, even when you get through the whole thing, you really don't know her whole past. And she's an incredibly damaged person, which makes her great at her job. But she's basically a monster. and she's trying hard to separate being a monster from what made her a monster. So my voice is getting a little raspy. I think it's time for another sip of this beer. L'chaim. The peach I thought was going to be some kind of odd aftertaste. It's actually part of the entire flavor of this. I love peaches. You can kind of smell it in there. It's super refreshing summer. I kind of didn't expect to like this, but I think I'm kind of liking it. All right, that might be a pool beer coming up pretty soon. Some of the other characters that we're going to talk about is a character called Dutch. He's the boss. He kind of is a super buff guy, American guy. Clearly his character's name and some of the things were pulled directly from Arnold Schwarzenegger's character from Predator, so I love that reference. That's really cool for me. There's another character, Benny. He's a Jewish American guy. I don't know why I mentioned he's Jewish, except for they mention it in the series, and so it felt like it was important to mention. And he's really awesome. He's kind of like the tech guy. He's kind of the guy in the chair. And then there is, I have to pronounce her name here, Balalaika. Balalaika is she's the lady who's kind of the head of like the Russian gang. Balalaika, I had to look it up. It's actually a reference to the Dragunov sniper rifle. So that like she's such a good shot, they kind of like just called her that reference. That's why I had to look it up and pronounce it properly. My Russian's horrible. I can do excellent Russian accent. I always sound like Russian woman, but I cannot pronounce Russian words for shit. Anyway, the action sequences on this are brilliant. I read the manga and it's really good, but after getting through one volume of the manga, I knew that I really preferred to watch the anime just because I love seeing the things flying through the air and the bullets, and it's really exciting to see it that way. So if you have read the manga, I strongly recommend the anime, and I think you're really going to like it. Now, there's so many different arcs and so many different things. This thing's got everything. I mean, again, it's got mercenaries, it's got nuns, it's got gangsters, it's got organized crime, it's got shootouts, you've got friends become enemies, enemies become friends, and it goes deep. And this character, Rock, in a world that's just bent on cutthroat violence, he uses his skills in negotiation and diplomacy to kind of move his way through this world, and people, kind of respect that. He's not, whereas Revy has zero diplomacy. If this was a role-playing game, she would botch every roll. She just walks in there, loud mouth, shoots her mouth off, says the wrong thing, and just shoots her way out of every situation. And because she has incredible luck and dexterity, she kind of makes it. So it's fun to see those two characters together, and I'm not going to spoil too much of it, but there's some incredible bad guys. And by say bad guys, I'm going to use quotes because in comparison to all the other characters in it, these are really three-dimensional bad guys. There's nobody in this show that is just bad for the sake of bad. I always hated that, that's why Skeletor is such a hilarious character. He's just bad for the sake of bad, like even Megatron, it even isn't bad for the sake of bad. He's got a little bit of backstory. So it's always silly to me when they're just evil characters. Why are they evil? What caused them to be there? And so these characters that end up being the antagonists to our protagonists, they're only antagonists because our characters, the story's about our characters. Really turned around, the stories could oftentimes be about how they're heroes. So it's very interesting how they make that story cohesive and make the bad guys interesting, because at some point you're like, who am I rooting for? Am I rooting for this other? Because they're kind of equally good and bad. It's just who have you been in the story with longer. So there's some really crazy scenes. There's always some new thing. There's a nice overarching plot, and then there's a lot of these kind of like secondary plots. The Roberta plot is amazing. So much happens. The twins, these brutal twins that do some. I mean, they're terrifying. I think you're really going to like it. So I recommend this anime a lot. If you like action and especially if you've been watching some things and you want something, and I hate to say it, if you want to watch something that is maybe has less of kind of like the sexy stuff that maybe is uncomfortable to watch with other people, or if you're trying to get somebody into it, sometimes watching some of that stuff that has kind of like the super inappropriate like panty shots and stuff like that, it's a little it's hard to watch with people that are just like normal people. This is a great one to really introduce kind of the average dude into anime, because you're like, whoa, these are some cool gunfights, and it's very familiar in that way. So it's really cool to see the Japanese interpretation of what these kind of like these 1980s shootout guns, drugs, and weapons movies would be about. So check that out here. Again, also check out this Four Peaks Peach, brewed locally here. I like it, nice and cold. It's a great summer beer. So tell me what you think about our new evening in the backyard recording scenario. I don't know if the mic was picking up any wind noise. We actually have a little bit of a storm kind of brewing here, which is odd. We get like 6 of those a year, so what are the chances? I didn't get eaten by any spiders, scorpions, or centipedes. Rattlesnakes are at bay, so I made it through. It's been great talking anime with you guys. My name was Scott, and Kampai.